All right, we are recording. So it is now 4 after. I think everyone's gotten a moment to kind of get settled in. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to say hello and welcome to Virtual Coffee Brown Bag Edition. Our mission is to be a welcoming tech community that allows for growth and mentorship at all levels. We'd like to create meaningful opportunities for learning, leadership, and contribution for everyone. And to find our code of conduct, events, or simply learn more, you can visit us at virtualcoffee.io. We are really glad to have We are really glad to have Elizabeth with us today. Elizabeth is going to be sharing experiences working with email templates via HTML, do a general introduction of developing for email clients, as well as talking about its talking about its challenges, as well as to give a short introduction on MJML, which I myself had to Google as well. I want to remind everyone to please go ahead and mute your mics. We're going to let Elizabeth do presentation. We can do questions at the end. Will that work for you, Elizabeth, or would you like to interrupt it with questions? Okay, questions at the end?
You can also interrupt. I don't mind.
Okay, perfect. So if you have a question and you want to interrupt Elizabeth, it's not an interruption. It's like raising your hand. So go ahead and unmute and speak up. Otherwise, use the hand raise feature or drop your question in chat and I will assist that. A little bit about Elizabeth. Elizabeth is a technical consultant developer from Germany. I'm not going to attempt your town name. Originally a social psychologist who used to do lab experiments on eating behavior and migrated to software development. Kudos for another unique background. Let's see, current IT company. You're in your current IT company now since about 4 years, and this will be your 5th year. So congratulations on that. And would you like to go ahead? Happy to learn with you.
Thank you. Welcome. So I'll thanks a lot for this space, for sharing what I've learned throughout this journey in development of email templates. So can you see my screen? I don't hear anyone. Yeah, okay, cool. Yep. Yeah. Great. So today we're going to talk about styling emails using HTML and MJML framework. So I hear that for some of you, this is a pretty new information. So yeah, I'm happy to dive in there. So today the agenda is pretty straightforward. We just have a general introduction and we talk about overview of email layout development and also a little bit about what are the differences to normal web development. And I'll give you a brief introduction on MJML. And at the end, a couple of useful tools in case you're interested on further working on that on your own. So yeah. All right, so I think Sarah did a great job in introducing me. So she already told everything there was to tell about me. The only missing piece was like my coffee and dog lover being. But other than that, I think you did a great job. So yeah, I've been working with as a technical consultant for a while, and part of my job is really to work with development of email templates for all kinds of different customers. And yeah, that's where I'm coming from with this information for today. And yeah, the goals of the presentation today is really like, who did I have in mind? I mean, whoever wants to watch, first of all. But I also thought, I knew that the group has a lot of people who are coming out of, I don't know, who are coming out fresh as a software developer. So they did some courses, they did some, now I just forgot the word. But yeah, they learned by themselves how to become a developer. Or even, I know of experienced developers that never had the chance to work with emails because that's such a specific topic. So I thought people who don't have a lot of experience in email development. And yeah, so that means you will not become an expert in email development, but it's really like to open your horizons to what it is at all. And how can I go around doing that? And which tools can help me on this process? And that's why we are going to have a look into MJML, because MJML is a great framework which facilitates this job really enormously. And yeah, and now like I said, I want to give you a couple of tips on how to begin your journey in case you are interested in further exploring this path. So a bit more about the development of email layout. First of all, why this might be relevant for those of you out there who are interested in landing a job as a developer. This is a niche. So, and the reason that this is a niche is because companies, they really want, they make a big effort to improve their internal and external communication through all kinds of different medias. And I saw that with my customers, that you normally have a marketing department, which is focusing on this internal and external communication. And they have a set of rules for all kinds of different communications. And they have corporate identity documentation in which then they set out the rules of how, for example, printed documentation should look like, and all kinds of different things like their website. And they also think about their email. So this is, their CI, their corporate identity, is an important part of their branding. And it is applied to all kinds of communications, including email. So that's why thinking about email layout is an important thing, especially for big companies. So there is a market out there for this type of work. So if you thinking about just email communications, how do we go about communicating via email, and how is it being read? So you will typically think about a person working for a company sitting in their desktop, opening their email in the desktop, and that's it. But if you see the trends in the email communication, actually desktop is a small minority of that. So you see here in orange, is a small percentage of all emails which are opened via desktop. A very big chunk of it is via mobile, and another big chunk is via web. So you have different types of devices which you use for opening email communication. So this is the first level of complexity that you think about when you think about email communication. And then you have the other level of complexity, which is there are so many different email clients, and we're going to go a little bit more in detail on that. And what that means is that, well, if you think that you have to design and develop something which looks good on mobile and desktop and web, on all kinds of devices, then you think about responsive design. And this is really an important. Do you still hear me? Okay, yeah. And so it is like an important thing to have this always in the back of your head, to work with a responsive design. So it is an asset, but it is really a challenge. And the reason why, so if you compare with normal web development, like we see here, well, we do have a good variety of web browsers. So this is an example. We see here Chrome, Safari, Internet Explorer, Edge, and so on. So these are quite some, but we do have standards when we're thinking about web development. And the browsers do stick to these standards. And it is unfortunately not the case when you think about web email development. So this is just an example of some of the email clients that are there in the market. I mean, there are more than 100, and this is just a non-exhaustive list of those. And so you see the complexities there, because you have all different kinds of machines parsing and interpreting your code, and you don't know what's coming out in the end. So that is the challenge. So how do we deal with this challenge? How can you even test something like that? You have your code, and how do you test your code for email? So these are the two of the main known tools for that in the market as of today. There are other tools. So these tools I have worked with personally, and I know them, and they offer, they have positive and negative sides, both of them, but they're really good in general, really good tools. And with these tools, you can see in one batch how does one piece of code render in different devices. So this is more or less an example of how this can look like in the practice. So you paste your code, and then you generate the visualization in all different kinds of email clients. Yeah, and if you're coming from web world, you're thinking about these very fancy animations, and you're putting some JavaScript on top of your HTML and CSS. So forget that. You stick to the basics when you're coming into this email world. So you're customizing emails basically with CSS. So you have HTML and CSS, and that's your basis. And like I said before, the code will not necessarily look always the same. It really depends on kind of the email client that you're using. You are not working with it all the time. Yeah, you can work with divs, definitely, but it's not the gist of your code. It's going to be basically tables. So you're going to work a lot with tables and nested tables. So, and you even have something called ghost tables for Outlook. And yeah, these nested tables, there is a general tendency to keep them with a 600 max width pixel thing, because yeah, this has proven to be more sort of bulletproof for all different kinds of email clients. And on top of that, you have to think that if you want to put images on your code, you have to host them somewhere else on a server. So for that, I will give you one example, but there are many out there where you can just host your images. So you have to think about that as well. So yeah, before I go on, do you have any questions so far?
I have a slight question, maybe a slight comment. And yeah. I know that Jennifer has also raised another question, but you may actually get to that further in your presentation. I've always been kind of jokingly told that coding for HTML emails is almost like coding like it's the 1990s. And you mentioned tables, and I feel like that probably is accurate.
Yeah, I mean, it is like, it's a great comment, because that's how it feels. I mean, and this is also part of the challenge, because you're like, as a developer, you get to know all this like top-notch, super new technology, and you expect that you're going to use this, and you go to emails and you're working with this 90s, bare bone, like it is like they did it in the 90s. They would structure the web page with tables. Yep. So it's basically, it's very similar. And a lot of things that we know, nice CSS selectors, they won't work necessarily. So yeah, it is part of the challenges of working with this.
Yeah. Thank you. Jennifer did ask a question regarding, she's curious about the challenges that developers face regarding like the plethora of how to code for the 500 clients that render, and how to deal with the wonkiness. So if you want to address that now, great. If that's going to be addressed later, we'll happily wait as well.
Yeah, I think there's one thing I didn't think about it throughout the presentation that might be worth mentioning is, yeah, I mean, like I said, one of the challenges is definitely this multitude of different email clients. And like we saw, there are these tools that really help, standardizing and offering you an overview of all the clients. But the other point of it is really, it's in this process, it's really important to communicate with the client. So you will not promise the clients that for all possible email templates and operational system combination, you have 100% perfect layout. But it is important then in this process to communicate with your clients and set targets. So which are the most important emails that we're aiming at? And for that, there are also there's also information available online, which are the most popular email clients. So in case, for example, your customer is working with email templates for internal communication, then that's the easiest case scenario, because you know which are the email clients, so you target on them. But let's say your client is sending newsletters to every possible email client, then you can use what is existing information available online about the most commonly used email clients, sort of to target on these. And of course, as many as possible, I mean, as many as you can see, for example, in Litmus. But most often you try to narrow down a little bit. And of course, the more complex your layout is is becoming, then the more likely it is that you get an error or another. So this is also one of, there is a lot of negotiation there. So it's not just the technical skill involved, but also the soft skill, talking to the clients and deciding together.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. And so like, and did any of you hear about MJML before, or is it completely new for everyone? Like,
completely new for me.
Yeah, I had to Google it.
Me too.
Okay. Yeah, that's the overall impression I had. So it is MJML is a responsive email framework, and it's a markup language. So I imagine most of you are familiar with HTML. So it won't be hard for you if you already are familiar with HTML. It's not a difficult language. It's a markup language, and you can really easily translate it into MJML, which it's super similar. I'll show you examples in a moment. And the setup, this is what I got from their own, from the MJML website. I personally installed, like as usual with npm install, but I don't, in my development, I didn't use Yarn, and I'm not working as they are because we have a very specific setup in my company. Yeah, but so just to give you a little feeling for the syntax, so you who are familiar with the HTML, you know it is just a markup, and it's very similar. So you have an open tag, MJML open tag, just like HTML, and closing MJML tag, a header. So here inside an MJ header, you'll add metadata, and you have things like style, which are relevant for the document. So yeah, this is another difference, right? I mean, for web, you're having all different types of separate documents, and for MJML, you have this one thing. It includes the code about like the HTML, and includes the CSS, includes the style and the content in one. And everything which is content is going inside the MJ body, and it's composed of different sections. We'll see also a little bit about that in a minute. And there are also so-called columns, and so you can have things like MJ image, you can have something like MJ text or MJ button. So like everything is very clear. The documentation is great. It's super easy. Yeah. So like they offer this thing here, so you can try out this sort of live editor. So like you can see here, yeah, if you want to give it a try, it's you can just play around with it. You can see it in different formats. You can also generate HTML out of it, and you can even minify it in case you want to. So that's very convenient, and it already comes with some content here. So like we saw here, there is basically this structure with the body, and everything which you have to put inside MJML, you always have to add a section. And so MJML will tell you if you do something like something illegal, like MJ text, just floating somewhere inside, not outside of a column, you get an error. So it will, you can, if you're using this version of the editor, you'll see here what kind of error, right? So MJ text cannot be used inside MJ section, only inside MJ attributes, column, and hero. And everything which you want to know about it, you can see in the documentation. And yeah, so here, this is an example of an image, and all these sort of attributes, it's very sort of intuitive. Like, yeah, we know an image has a width attribute, so you just add the width there, and you have this logo here, and the SRC attribute. And yeah, if you try to add an attribute which is illegal, it's going to say the same thing to you as well. Like, I don't know, like font family, Arial. So like it will complain, and it's so that there are attributes which are pertinent and others which are not legal. But yeah, and here is an example of MJ text. I'll show you an example also of this kind of code inside Visual Studio Code. So yeah, so you can have another idea of how this look like. So like, for example, they also offer, MJML also offers, one moment, they offer templates. So if you go on their website, they will offer you some templates and you can copy, paste, and play around with them. So I'll give you an example here. This is an example of a template which is available online. And yeah, this is a simple structure. I show you how it looks like. So I installed in Visual Studio Code an extension so that I can work with MJML. And so if you look for extensions, I don't know how familiar you are with Visual Studio Code, but that's my tool of choice. And if you just go into the extensions here and you type in MJML, you see that you can install this extension. And with that, you can really work with visualizing, for example, directly out of Visual Studio Code, you can visualize the result of your code. So if you type in open preview to the sides, then you can see how your example looks like, your email looks like. So this is, yeah, fairly common formats. And yeah, a lot of these emails will go like into system generated, sort of automatically generated emails. So this is one very typical example of something you put into some system which is automatically generating your email for you. So you have this sort of here variables like first name and company name because it's inside some company system and they will trigger some data which is yeah, in the system and individually sent with their names and whatever it is. So this format here is a bit more complex variation of what we just saw. So basically you have here head and body, right? And you can add a style. I like to add a style. I'll show you something in a moment. So that I can see the structure of this email, or I can show you at least a structure of this email. And yeah, inside the body, you will have oftentimes then the sections. So the sections are really the main components of this email. And yeah, in this case, you'll have here sort of three main sections. You have like this one section, this one section. We'll dissecate this a little bit more in detail in a minute. So, but just for you to have an overview. And what you can do on top is, if you want to understand how this thing works, you can add borders in the tables because, like I said, everything in this email world is about tables. So if you want to see how things work in the background, including MJML, you'll see that once you add some formatting to the table, like if you go into the data here, right, in the cell of the table, you see, and you add some formatting, like some border or so, then you see that each one of those things here is a cell. And you have a lot of different cells, nested cells within this table. Yeah, and the end result of this is a very nice, robust email. And I made, yeah, and we have some time, so I'll give you an example of how can you build something from scratch, right? You can maybe go ahead here and open a preview. Now you have nothing here, so you can just create an MJML thing. And I'll make it a little bit bigger. Oh, it's quite big. So yeah, I actually have the code already. I think I'll just paste it here. So this is a very simple example. And if you can really play around yourself, that's what I would suggest after this call, that you go and, well, if I would do something like that, maybe with a client in a small group, I would suggest everyone go immediately online and play around, right? But since we are a few and yeah, we're all muted, so I think it's nice just to fix this. If you're interested in this type of thing, after this session is done, go to the link which I will provide you in the presentation, and just play around with it and add something like this simple, like, you know, an image of whatever, a dog or something. Like I added a dog, but you add whatever you like. And you can see that this is sort of, you know, working in the sense, I mean, I barely did any styling or anything at all. It's just pure standard MJML. And it's already, you see that there is some breakpoint here, then it's stacking on top of each other. So there is quite some things behind the scene going on here. And there is also this thing here, like this little button, which buttons aren't, if you're coding emails by manually, it is normally very annoying, especially if they're multi-line. But with this thing, it's makes it much easier, not for the multi-line ones, but for the normal ones. So you can just create an MJ button thing. You can add, yeah, the href attribute, some background colors, some border radius, and there are a number of different attributes. So yeah, and the next thing I would like to share is, so now a little bit behind the scenes, how does this work? So this is the same thing I showed you, but if we go into the developer tools, then it's really it really gives you a very clear idea. So like that's what I was saying, that you have a TD for each part of it or each section of it. This is like what MJML is doing. You have this TDs being generated, and you see here, yeah, in the developer tool, this is another sort of content, another TD with the name and your first name, last name, and so on. And yeah, this goes for each and every piece of or component inside the MJML. And you will have, like I said before, there are nested tables. So this, for example, this button here, it is a nested table. And the part of the button, like this part here, what is like a little bit grayish or bluish here, this is the whole table, and this is just one cell. So yeah, so this is to give you an overview on how it looks behind the scenes. And well, yeah, I think we might even be, do you have any questions in between, or?
There were a few questions that popped up in chat.
Oh, okay.
Let's go ahead. First one's from Jennifer. Are the slides going to be available for review after this event? Is there a repository for any, like, I guess, starter code or anything that the individuals could try out?
Well, I can, if you have interest, I can make this code of this templates here available, and of
Perfect.
this starter thing, and share it on GitHub. Yeah.
Perfect.
And yeah, I will share the presentation as well.
Perfect. Awesome. Let's see. Looks like there's 3 more questions. Deborah K is next. For people who are very new to web development and learning HTML and CSS, are there jobs available while learning? What are the job requirements, and what job titles should be looked out for? I'm assuming that means in relation to the MJML email
okay.
world.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't start out my job like that, searching specifically for it. But if you search for something like email developer or something like that, then I saw this in a course I attended online, and there was, in fact, this search for jobs with email developers. So yeah, it's a specific niche. But if you were, for example, a freelancer, I have a colleague who was working with us, and he's freelancer, and he said he also had tasks for developing email templates. So this might happen if you are just normal developer, that some company asks you for doing this type of job as well. So you
Awesome.
can either offer this as if you're a freelancer, or you can search specifically for the task, or yeah, it can happen to you.
Okay.
And then this colleague, it was very funny because he was like, he wasn't experienced. He's a very experienced developer, and he's very familiar with the newest technology. And he said it was a pain for him to work with it because he didn't have the experience. He thought it would be very easy.
Okay, that's good to know. And that might slightly address the second question that Deborah Kay had, talking about being a very new developer. And would it be possible to transition from an email developer to a more, I don't want to use the word traditional developer because that doesn't really mean anything anymore, a non-email developer. And it seems to be that, yes, like it's fluid, just like any other language. It's just another niche that someone can work in, correct?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there are people who are really real just specialists in this area. I mean, you can, and there is space for that if you are interested.
Okay.
But you can also do both. But like in my experience, I can't talk for everyone, but in my experience, like I do a lot of this, but I also do other tasks which are not related to emails in my company. So yeah, but yeah, it depends really how your company will see you and where you're going to work. But I think you can definitely, if it's something, if you're new, I would give it a try and see if you find it any interesting. And but of course, search online and see if you find jobs in, yeah, because in the US the market is definitely different than the one in Germany. So, but yeah, do a search and see if there is a lot, and also if you are interested after you try out.
Thank you. Last question is from Jennifer. Looks to be about images. Is there a recommended maximum file size for like optimal loading time, number of images, those kind of general questions?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, for images, it is a good question. Like normally, what I do, it's well, not always, but we work with SAP software, and sometimes part of the code gets swallowed out when you insert the code into the system. So it's difficult to tell, like for every system, how the code will behave. But in some for some companies, if they're pasting the code into some subsystem, which is automatically generating the output, you always have to make sure that maybe some attributes are not being removed or things like that. And one of the things I noticed is the combination of the subsystem swallowing some parts of the code together with some email clients being really annoying with a specification of just image size as an attribute or something like that, is that it is the surest way is to really host the image in the size, in the exact size you want it to appear in the email. So that would guarantee that this email, even if the attribute and the specifications you added, that the image should be only, let's say, 200 pixels wide, even if that doesn't work, but your image is actually much, much larger. If that breaks, for somehow your email will break, and then you have a problem. If you have a small image, which is actually 200 pixels wide, then you have no problem. So this is to be on the safe side. So it's against best practice if you think about, you know, web development as a whole, but it is a way to safeguard, and it really depends on the system you're working with and things like that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, and so, oops, sorry. Yeah, so I did the overview in MJML in Visual Studio Code and browser view. And yeah, so we are going to end quite a lot earlier than I thought. I thought about coding the example in front of you guys, but maybe you're going to be bored by me coding along. And I think it's more valuable if you're really trying it yourself after the session. So these are some useful tools. Of course, you will have already Googled MJML. So this is the first place to start. Like I said, there's email on acid on Litmus. You can, for both, you are able to have a free account for a week. So I know it's not super nice if you're trying this thing out for the beginning. You will probably not want to do that, but it's good to know once you have interest or if you want to give it a free trial. And but the number 5 here is called Putzmail. This is very useful as well, because if you go there, you can add your email. So here you can, oh, sorry, you don't see it on my screen. So this one, so you can create a new test mail, and you will add the recipient and the line and the code, and then you receive it in your email. So if you have Gmail or whatever you have. And of course, if you have Outlook, for whichever reason, I actually do have Outlook, and it's good to always test an Outlook, because if you are thinking about corporative environments, it's oftentimes they will be using Outlook. Yeah, and so this is the easiest, most straightforward tool. But of course, you don't start thinking about the most difficult in your head beforehand. You start with whatever you have as an email client, and you paste the code here, and you send it to yourself, and you see how it looks. You can get anything that you have already. Like, just to get what I said about the differences between web and email, you just send your own website or whatever thing you created here and send it to yourself and see how it looks in your email. And if you, of course, differently than in your website, you need to host your images somewhere. So you can use something like a free image hosting thing here. So you upload your images. You are having it in English. Where is it English here? Espanol, English. So you just start uploading, and you will have an URL. So that is all you need for, yeah, for then putting it in your image, in your email. So yeah, I think there are other tools which I can share if there's interest, and let me know. But I think this is just sort of the bare bones where you can start. And yeah, if you want to start with that, like, let's say if you want to start locally, you just have to do an npm install, and you'll have the package there somewhere here. But yeah, and other than that, you can start it also on this online tool that is also very simple. And yeah, that's basically it. Like I said, I didn't use the yarn. You can use different techniques to parse the MJML content, like FS file system. I don't know if you're familiar with that in Node. For those of you who work with Node.js or are interested about that, you can search for Node file system, and you can just read all kinds of different files out of your computer. Super cool. So yeah, I think basically I have said all I had to say. So yeah, do you have any further questions?
K asked a good question about any additional resources, and you kind of mentioned that there were more. So I definitely think we have some hungry individuals here who would love to have whatever resources you'd be willing to throw at them, especially geared towards individuals first starting off in this particular realm.
Yeah.
So thank you for that in advance. Were there any other questions from anyone, either chat or voice? This has been really good. I've learned so much.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Doesn't look like we have any additional questions. Elizabeth, would you be willing to answer any questions via DM and Slack, or what would be the preferred way for an individual to get in touch with you if they maybe had a little bit more involved question?
Yeah, it can be in Slack. Okay. I think it's the easiest. Or what is DM actually? I don't know.
Direct message.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, they can send me a message in Slack.
Awesome. Let's see. Everyone's mentioning that their emails are going to get very beautiful. Please send them and share screenshots in Slack. We would love to celebrate with you. So Elizabeth, I'm going to go ahead and I guess close this out a little bit early and be respectful of everyone's time. So I want to say very much thank you for doing this, Elizabeth. Anytime that you can share a little bit of knowledge and get individuals in our community hungry, and really anybody that watches this video hungry to learn a new thing, I think it's empowering. We look forward to sharing this video so those that attended today live can rewatch, dive into those new skills, as well as individuals who weren't able to attend can learn as well. If you have any questions, comments for about Virtual Coffee, always reach out to the leadership team. That would be Becca, myself, Dan, Brian, or Kirk. We're always here to support you in whatever question you might have. So thank you again to everybody who participated.
Oh, I just have one more comment.
Yes.
If you, I don't know if you could send me feedback. If you, for example, any of you would be interested in seeing more code, because I thought my idea was to really give an overview like generically, but if anyone has interest in see like, I don't know, code and do something more like a workshop kind of thing, just let me know. Like, yeah, that was, yeah.
There was some enthusiastic nodding. So I'm gonna say that a workshop may be planned in the future. So
okay.
Let's talk about that.
Okay.
All right. So stay tuned. Let's we'll be figuring out how to do a workshop on this. So Deborah Kay, Jennifer, I know both of you will be attending. So awesome. But I want to say welcome, or actually to the end. So thank you to everybody who attended. I'm excited already. And we will look forward to seeing everyone at the next event. All right. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.